14 airports across the nation are now open for full domestic operations and will no longer need ministerial approval for flights. And this includes private and charter operations, although passenger figures still remain low. With international passenger traffic responsible for 30% of domestic operations, the federal government has set up a committee that will look into the resumption of international flights. And in the United Kingdom, there is now a new 14-day quarantine on Spanish travelers as COVID-19 number rises in Spain. This and more is what we serve you on the program. Thank you so much for joining us on Aviation this week on Channels Television. I'm Bukola Joe Oketsumbi.
Nearly all countries across the globe now have their borders reopened, and airlines are once again back in business. From Nigeria to Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, the United Kingdom to Australia, travelers and tourists are keen to travel by air in the new normal, but with a lot of caution as the COVID-19 pandemic persists. Taking off in Britain, Gatwick Airport is hopeful that passenger numbers will begin to increase as quarantine measures for those traveling to the United Kingdom from around 70 countries and overseas territories, including France and Italy, no longer apply from July 10. UK airports, including Gatwick, have imposed safety measures such as perspex screens, mandatory mask wearing, and hand sanitizer stations and hand washing facilities to stop the spread of the virus. With quarantine removed from some countries, Spain has come under the hammer from the United Kingdom as London-listed airlines and toll stocks fell sharply early in the week after an imposed 2-week coronavirus quarantine on travelers returning from Spain. The country is also watching cases in Germany and France closely, dealing a blow to an industry already reeling from a downturn. TUI, Europe's biggest holiday company, said it had decided to cancel all holidays to mainland Spain up to and including Sunday, August 9, while Ryanair said it had no plans to cut UK-Spain capacity.
As you said, mainland Spain, the government has advised against anything but essential travel. Clearly a holiday, however much we all love it, it's not essential travel, although sometimes I wish it was. So we've cancelled all our mainland Spain programme. And we've cancelled out to the 9th of August because clearly it's a fairly fast-moving kind of creature and we don't know quite where we'll go next. But our customers that we've cancelled clearly can either have a full refund or we will give them a booking incentive to try and come on another holiday that we're still operating.
To the United States, it's touch-free bag tag printing to biometric boarding. A George Bush Intercontinental Airport in Houston, Texas, has put new measures in place to allow passengers travel from curb to the aircraft, touching as few surfaces as possible.
Basically, we're trying to adapt every step of the air travel experience. As soon as you arrive at the airport, you're going to see signage on the curb, you're going to see signage on our digital monitors, on our PA system, audio messages, reminding our travelers of good hygiene practices during their stay at the airport.
The passengers are encouraged to check in and print checked baggage tags using their smartphones. Check-in desk agents sit behind plastic screens with stickers reminding the passengers to stay 1.8 meters apart. Australian travellers are rejoicing as Queensland opens its borders to other states and territories except Victoria. Travellers are being allowed into the state without undergoing a mandatory 2-week quarantine for the first time in 15 weeks. While some Australians queued for hours in their vehicles to get into the state, others opted to fly.
I've been in Wagga Wagga for the past couple of weeks. It's taken me 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks to get home now. So it's not been too bad, but it's good that we didn't have to quarantine when we get back.
Oh, we're going to Port Douglas, so we're following the sun, you know, always follow the sun, you know, so yeah, should be fun. I mean, like it's the first time in months that we live in Sydney, and yeah, should be a blast, man, I think, you know, a little bit like get away from the stress and from all the hectic media, news, daily life, you know, like get some freshen up and come back.
In Hong Kong, Cathay Pacific shareholders are voting to accept a $5 billion rescue package from the Hong Kong government as the aviation industry is battered by the coronavirus. Governments around the world have been helping airlines amid a plunge in travel demand and the coronavirus-related travel restrictions. Cathay has grounded most of its planes, flying only cargo and skeleton passenger networks to major destinations such as Beijing, Los Angeles, Singapore, Sydney, Tokyo and Vancouver. The shareholders, including SWA, which holds 45%, Air China, which owns 30%, and Qatar Airways with 10%, plan to participate in the rights issue. Their holdings will fall to 42%, 28% and 9.4% afterwards. And now to Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. The country has cautiously reopened its tourism industry to international tourists after nearly 4 months of shutdown. Quite a number of international flights are arriving at the Dubai International Airport, although the figure is much less than before the pandemic. Back home in Nigeria, a simulated flight between the capital territory Abuja and Kano aboard Max Air BM1644 had members of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, the aviation minister, as well as journalists to assess the state of readiness of the airport. Then a tour of the facility and observations by team members.
I just observed that unlike what I saw in Abuja at the airport, I want to suggest to the minister and the ministry by extension to look at the possibility of increasing more supply of water to the departure point of this airport. We look around the airport, I still want to see more of campaign against the spread of COVID-19.
In Owerri, the capital of Imo State in southeast Nigeria, Air Peace aircraft heads out to the Federal Capital Territory. Within the terminal, COVID-19 protocols such as the use of face masks, maintaining social distancing, washing of hands and disinfection of the airport is ongoing. The passengers appear impressed by the COVID-19 protocols.
I'm very, very excited. I'm so happy that the airport is now open. We can go anywhere we want. I'm just very, very excited.
They check your temperature and you sanitize your bag with your hands. And you get in, they check you, and if you look at the floor, they are keeping distance. So you have to maintain the social distance. So, well, the government are really trying for them to keep it up, because if this thing gets out of hand, man, many of us, we lost our family and our friends.
The airport authority pleads with passengers to be timely.
The process here is this. When you come in from the car park, we do alternate parking, so that you don't mix, to maintain social distancing. So from the car park, you joined the screening tent, which is outside. We didn't have issue of passenger waiting on the queue, and we didn't have any issue of passenger saying I have stayed too long. The facilitation was very speedy and it was very clear to everybody. I don't think there's a passenger that even stayed more than 1 hour.
From the Imo Airport in the southeast to neighboring rivers, where the Port Harcourt International Airport received its first flight after months of closure. In Lagos, passengers take to the new normal, observing the social distancing rules at the Murtala Mohammed Airport. Temperature checks and hand sanitizing are necessary before entry. Then to the check-in counter, where there is no close human contact. And now the aircraft lifts out of Lagos.
As you know, during the whole procedure to restart flights, we mapped out everything that will be done in the passenger process, right from booking to checking in to getting on board. So all those procedures were followed, trying to minimize contacts. At check-in, all the crew and staff had the full PPE gowns for cabin crew, masks as I'm wearing, hand gloves for the people that have to collect things from people. Security checks were done using the wand, so there was no contact. So I think that is taking care of a lot of the thing we had. In fact, we had some passengers that turned up with face shields but no masks. And our procedure requires everybody to wear a mask. So we have masks available for passengers to use if required.
Within the terminal also, little businesses are obviously taking advantage of the resumption, as the authorities say it's safe to operate.
Well, it's encouraging for now. You know, the pandemic is still out, and the government is trying to bend the curve, and the people are still apprehensive. I think on a daily basis we'll get to experience passenger growth, because definitely it will affect the economy, and then the growth will begin to come up. And if we don't do it, there are many people that have been tied down in a particular place for about 3 months. And since the roads are also closed, they've been in a place whereby they are not expected to be.
At the domestic terminal, passengers also defy the rain to make their journey.
FAN and other relevant agencies have put themselves together to really put a good check for passengers, so that the COVID and things that needs to be in place for passengers have been really checked on and worked on.
14 airports across Nigeria are now open for full domestic operations. They include the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, the NNAMDI AZIKWE International Airport, Abuja, Malam Aminu Kano International Airport, Kano, Port Harcourt International Airport, Rivers, Sam Mbakwe Airport, Imo, and the Maiduguri Airport, Borno, and 8 others.
What's more important for me is the sustainability of this process, to ensure that this is sustained and ensure that the processes are there too. In reality, what I saw on what I heard on board were lots of passengers that were on that flight with me complaining. They were literally complaining that they actually had social distancing in the lounges and the waiting areas and the check-in areas, but on board there were no social distancing. But I believe that's a function of lack of proper education and awareness, because like it's been reiterated at this point, the domestic airlines cannot afford social distancing or missing the middle seats at this point. So what needs to be done is to ensure that passengers and the traveling public educated on the measures that have been put in place, such as the HAPA health filter purification system, such as the PPE enforcement by the staff and the in-flight crew, and as well as the cleaning, sanitization of the aircraft by the airlines. All these processes put in place to ensure that even though the passengers are still seated according to normal seating arrangements on the aircraft, it's still a safe time and a safe process to travel. And aviation is not being a vector to the transmission of COVID-19. The sequencing of flights it would help with a great deal, but there are a lot of factors that are underlying it. We have the rainy season that we're going through at the moment. If a flight hypothetically is sequenced for, is confirmed and scheduled for 7 o'clock, and that sequence due to weather or weather pattern or weather element does not let that flight operate. The next flight, if it's sequenced for 7:30, I will want to leave at my 7:30 slot rather than wait. So there's an ideal of sequencing, and there's a reality of the operational effects of sequencing. So what needs to be done is, what if there is a clog in the wheel? How do we address that? Is being able to look at this process and have a standard operating procedure, which has already been put in place. And with that put in place, is now shifting the process further from the trend and surveys that we've evaluated. We saw that we're actually evaluating and we're stating, suggesting that we're going to see the growth in 3 weeks, and thereafter there might be a stale. The stalemate may be due or could be attributed to the apprehension about the passengers traveling. One, the lack of the vaccine, the increase and the spike in the COVID-19 patient. Even the PTF is actually claiming that there's going to be a spike in September.
When Aviation This Week returns, Newsflash is next. Do join us again. Newsflash begins with the Accident Investigations Bureau's release of 4 final reports of air crashes. This would bring the number of reports released by the current management to 31, with over 100 safety recommendations in the last 4 years. The commissioner of the agency, Akinlateru, said 27 final accident reports and 97 safety recommendations have been issued to the public since 2017. He said the reports represented 64% of releases since the inception of AIB. The Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, said the Nigerian government has inaugurated the National Air Transport Facilitation Committee to review the guidelines for the reopening of the country's airports to international flights. Sirika, while speaking at the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 briefing in Abuja, highlighted members of the committee to include officials from the Ministries of Aviation, Foreign Affairs, Health, and other agencies of government. The minister also lamented the inability of the aviation industry to pay staff salaries because international flights were yet to resume.
National Air Transport Facilitation Committee has been established, which comprises of the following membership: Ministry of Aviation, Foreign Affairs, Health, Ministry of Culture and Tourism, Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, Nigeria Customs, Nigeria Immigration, Nigeria Police, Nigeria Agricultural Quarantine Service, Ministry of Interior, the State Security Services, Nigerian Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Nigerian Airspace Management Agency, the Ground Handlers Association, the Freight Forwarders Association, the Air Operators Certificate Representatives, Airline Operators of Nigeria Representatives, Nigerian Civil Aviation Security Committee, and the Airport Security Committee. They will be having their meeting to further discuss the protocols as to open of the airports. Certainly, aviation is worst hit. There must be passenger movements, especially international passenger, for us to be able to survive. We've said here on this platform that salaries are becoming difficult for us to pay. So we want to open more than you want to open. We daily living with it. When are we going to open? But this is subject to so many factors. And all of this, all of the sacrifice that aviation is making is in the interest of the public.
4 hot air balloons took off from Israel's Ben Gurion Airport as flights were halted for the unprecedented event. Permission for the 4 hot air balloons to take off from the airport's runway was given due to the small number of planes taking off and landing at the airport amid a coronavirus outbreak. The airport authority closed the airspace above the airport for the event, which many aviation enthusiasts came to watch. The flight resumption between China and Europe is good news for both airline companies and travelers, as it shows COVID-19 is waning in the country. The general manager of Air France KLM in Greater China, Tom Baum, made the remarks during an exclusive interview on the day KLM Royal Dutch Airlines resumed passenger flights from Amsterdam in the Netherlands to Shanghai in East China after a 5-month suspension due to the COVID-19 pandemic. For Baum, this signals the market is rebounding after a long stoppage in services. Airlines are also abiding by rules and regulations in accordance with the epidemic prevention regulations of Civil Aviation of China, Europe, and other relevant departments to secure the safety of passengers.
Today we are actually also celebrating that we have the second one, which is KLM from Amsterdam, full flight with lots of passengers coming back to China. And also a second Air France. So now in total we have 3 flights per week, all to Shanghai. So we are happy to at least be, seeing some traction in the market again and making our customers happy with all the new rules and regulations that we have to abide to as well. Because having lived in China for a bit more than 2 years, I've experienced already from the beginning and was very impressed by the way that things happen in China. There's always a big strategic plan. And compared to many other countries where I've lived in, because not only in the Netherlands, the way things are executed here is very impressive. So in terms of timing, deadline, dedication, quality. So, and I think that relates as well to the way that the Chinese government has been trying to deal and dealt with the whole COVID-19 situation. Very quickly also measures were taken.
And the next stop is France, where Air France has bid farewell to its A380 Super Jumbo with a final flight from Charles de Gaulle Airport near Paris. Dozens of people gathered outside the airport to witness the Air France jet take off one last time before landing back at the airport late in the day. Faced with weak sales of the four-engine Big Bird, beaten on efficiency by smaller jets like the Airbus A350 and Boeing 787, Airbus announced a halt to production of the huge plane last year. Airbus still has record orders for smaller jets, but the A380 is winding down just as Europe's aerospace capital faces wider job pressures due to the coronavirus crisis. A plane fan watched wistfully as the aircraft lifted for takeoff.
C'est un adieu. Donc un adieu, forcément, il y a de l'émotion.
It's an adieu, and with an adieu there's always emotion. As I've said a while ago, there's the historic aspect, and personally it's a dream that will never come true. Riding a 380 plane, that's how it is. That's life. It's the circumstances. There's a bit of everything. It's the end of a chapter for the country, for the company, for all of us, and it's a bit hard.
Pour nous tous, quoi, en fait, voilà. Donc c'est un petit peu, ouais.
The 47-year-old rail worker has been saving up since childhood to travel to New York City on the world's fanciest aircraft. She first targeted riding on the Concorde, but when the jet was retired in 2003, she set her sights on the A380, a goal that now might never happen.
It's really a field that interests me. These emotions, I felt them too in 2003 with the retirement of the Concorde. These are things that can be explained while at the same time are inexplicable. We just experience it, that's all. We experience it and in an intense way.
2 weeks ago, the last convoy of trucks carrying 3 fuselage sections squeezed through the rural village of Levinac on their way to Toulouse, where the final Super Jumbo will be assembled for another airline before the model ends production in 2021, just 14 years after entering service. This is where we call it a day on the program. See you next week. And stay safe. I'm Bukola Joe Oketumbi.